Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 12th episode of the PureJoy Podcast. I'm your host, M, and this is a bi-weekly exploration into what brings people joy. Every week I have on a different guest, and we do a little interview into what in this person's life brings them joy. It's not necessarily what brings them the most joy, but it's just something that they've had in their life over a period of time that they have spent some time doing or spent some time in, and they find that it brings them a sense of joy, a sense of peace. And today is no different. Today, my guest is incredibly special to me. It is my mom. We've been looking forward to this episode for quite some time, so we're going to switch on over to that.
Hello.
Hello, Mom. Hello. Welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here. Very excited to be a guest.
I've been very excited to have you on. I've had this in the thoughts for quite a while, and I thought that it was like perfect timing with this episode coming up because on Wednesday is like your birthday, and I thought that it was a very exciting way to sort of, you know, just like talk about you, to talk about what brings you joy for a little bit before, you know, we celebrate you also on your birthday. So why don't we start off by you introducing yourself a little bit to us here, and let us know who we'll be talking to today.
Well, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
Awesome. Well, my name is Sandy, and just happy to be here. Happy to have this experience with you. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Where do you talk to us a little bit about where you come from, where you find yourself, where
Yeah.
You know, we can do like a little condensed version, but
because I got a bit all over. But well, I originally hail from the Sunshine State of Florida, but I consider most of my home life, I guess, and growing up, and most of my years were spent in the southeast part of Texas, where you were born.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had a very blessed life, I think, to some degree, in that it has enabled me to move around and explore and get to experience some adventures I might not have had an opportunity of doing had my life taken a different course. Yeah. So just trying to get what I can out of it, enjoy the most I can, and just learn to be happy. Is it all possible?
Yeah. I think that is that's sort of a huge focus of this whole podcast, is to like find different ways to find that joy. And maybe it's a little selfish in that I think I get to get the most joy out of it, being the one that, I don't know, I get to come on and interview everyone about their joys and get that firsthand experience of like what people will be listening to when this kind of comes out. And but I do hope to ultimately spread that joy to others as they listen. So that's fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, we like to start each of these episodes off with a little question, and that's just something that has brought you joy today.
Something that has brought me joy today. Wow. I've been in kind of a work mode today, trying to get things a little bit ready for the winter. But just being able to spend a peaceful, quiet day, puttering about, taking care of some things that needed to be taken care of. You know, getting some chores out of the way, or brought me some joy. So now I'm able to kind of kick back for the next couple of days and just kind of chill. Yeah.
I think that's great. Just like a nice, relaxing day. I have, like doing this kind of stuff more often now. My days are kind of scheduled as to like when I'm going to be working on this and when I'm going to be making it and when I'm going to be et cetera. But I did find some extra time today. Our upstairs in our house looks just fine. Looks great. Like, right, you come into the house, it's nice, it's put together. Downstairs in our house is a disaster. And that's really just because like I'm able to put that to the side, compartmentalize away from it, because I know that even when there's a guest around, they won't see that stuff. But it started to wear on me a little bit, so I got actually some of it picked up, like the core of the problem kind of rearranged and picked up today. There's a lot that I can't do because we don't have a vehicle in order to like donate the stuff that I want to donate. There's like a big table, some chairs, a bunch of clothes, like so much. But once I get that stuff out of the way, I have some help next week to help get that to a place of donation. This whole basement will be cleared up, and I've found a lot of joy in that today.
Yeah, clearing space and opening up.
Yeah.
Just opening up that space.
It's just been sort of a junk storage space for almost 3 years now, and to be able to actually use it will be great. Yeah. Just another space in the house to have for relaxation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easier when you can close the door, like you were saying to it, or you don't have to. It's well, you live down there. That's your main area, but for your own living space yourself, right? Right. Your main area, right? So even though you and Kenna, that's your space, but still it can get cluttered. It can get, that's where everything kind of lands. It's where stuff kind of builds up, and then you can walk away from it and come upstairs and don't have to see it. I find the same when I've got the spare bedrooms. I do a lot of overflow into there. And when it gets a little crazy, I close that door and I just don't think about it. It's okay. But then I open that door and go,
so much more anxiety.
Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes, and then you got to be in the right frame of mind to tackle something specific like that, because you're organizing, you're looking, you're making assessments on everything that you're touching and moving. So that can create some anxiety. So sometimes it helps. I just got to be in the right frame of mind. And that right frame of mind might come at 11 o'clock at night, or it can come at 6 o'clock in the morning. So it's just whatever it hits me right, that's when I do it.
It's time.
It's time. Yep. Tackle it. It's time.
Yep. On to our topic at hand. What in life brings you pure joy?
Well, as you know, I've been questioning you a lot about this podcast, and I've been questioning you a lot about the topic matter, subject matter, or whatever, trying to come up with something and figure out. And listening to some of your other ones, really enjoyed them. Thank you very much. And I have to say that the thing that's going to take me back each time, the thing that gives me the most joy, is putting my hands in the soil. Got to get my hands in the soil. I don't care if it's dumping plants out of pots, putting those pots away for the winter, or laying out a new garden bed, or creating a new garden space in the area. If I could just get my hands in the soil, everything else goes away. Everything, all the anxiety, all the angst, all the anger, all the upset, all the concern, all the worry, everything goes away because I'm focused in that moment in the soil.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing like, I can't put gloves on my hands. I've tried that numerous times. People say, oh, you tear up your hands if you don't. I got to feel that soil. I got to feel it running through my hands. I got to feel it in my feet.
Tearing up my hands is part of it too. Then you look at your hands afterwards and you can see, like, not only do I have a beautiful garden, but my hands show the effort of my work.
Yeah, my nails are going to be brown and my fingers are going to be yellow, but I don't care because I've got this amazing space that I've just now created, and I love that. And then just like I said, just getting my hands in that soil, just really, really does something to me.
Yeah,
being able to connect with the earth, I think, has always been. I'm a water sign, but I'm very much of an earth type person, and I've got to touch my feet on the grass. I've got to have, my hands in that dirt. I've got to be clipping plants. I've got to be cutting and trimming and pruning and touching everything. It just makes me feel just alive. It really does.
Yeah. When do you think, when in your life did this kind of fascination, this obsession with plants and gardening kind of take off?
Started very young. I can remember being, before we moved from Florida to Texas, I was 7. And I remember helping my mom. We had a tomato patch in the backyard. She grew a lot of her own vegetables. There were 5 of us at the time, so we had a lot, but we spent a lot of time getting that soil ready getting the plants picked out, getting things planted, whether by seed or what, setting up the garden space, and then trying to figure out how to keep the animals out of it. If we lived around, even though we lived in a neighborhood, but we still had not a lot of fencing up between the yards. And so we could get some deer coming through. We could get lots of rabbits and lots of small type animals, squirrels and possums and things, and raccoons would rummage through all kinds of stuff. But it was, I just remember being very, very young, 7, 8, and playing in the dirt. And we'd sit out on the side, make mud pies while she was creating the rows or creating the patches where the herbs would go or where the vegetables would go. Or we always had fruit trees. And I just always remember either digging things up and moving them or helping to dig them up. We loved digging anything and anytime we could spend digging in the ground. That was our thing to do. Yeah, I can remember being, like I said, about 7. Yeah. That tomato patch in that backyard. I remember that.
In your introduction, you talked about a lot about how you've traveled all over. And I think not only have you, or I say sort of part of that traveling all over has had you living all over. You've lived have you lived on the West Coast yet?
Never lived on the West Coast.
But you've lived on the East Coast in multiple spots, like all up and down the East Coast, top to bottom, in the several areas of the Midwest. Basically, I think where this is going is, how has been that process of like developing your knowledge of gardening kind of evolved? Because you've moved so many places. It's got to be different
climates.
Totally different approaches to that.
Going from tropical to Midwest, where you can be blessed with having 4 full seasons, to going up to Vermont, where you have like the opposite of the southeast part of Texas. You've got typically 9 months of cold and about 3 months of some decent weather. You could plant and grow stuff. To Virginia, where you had 4 full seasons and could grow a lot of different things. Back where I am now in the Midwest, and I've got plants that I've drug along with me, things that I've picked up in places and brought home. There's a lot of reason I like road trips. I love to throw a shovel and a garbage bag, like a big hefty bag, in the back of the car. We've done that many times, driving down the road and see something on the side of the road I just got to have because I don't know what it is, but it looks really cool and I want it. So pull over, dig it up, and take it home. Did that once in Texas and found out that you can't do that in Texas in certain places because it's against the law to dig up that plant and take it out of its native area.
Yeah, a lot of wild plants kind of can fall under that.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Found these really cool cactus-looking things. They were spiky, kind of reminded me of a really skinny aloe vera plant, but it had a beautiful flower on it, and I wanted to dig it up and take it. And that was West Texas, and we got pulled over because I was speeding. The officer saw the bag in the back of the car, wanted to know what was in it, and I was proud, and I opened it up, and I said, "Oh, yeah, I just dug this up."
Look at this awesome plant.
Where'd you dig it up from? So don't walk the side of the road. And he said, "But where?" And it was like in San Marcos, I think. And he said, "There are many plants here that are indigenous to this area only. So we're going to have you put that back. Yeah, you can't take that with you. You can't." So I was like, dang.
You have to go back up the road and find the hole it came from.
So, he just made me dig a hole there on the side of the road and put the thing back because they were everywhere.
Yeah, it's totally fine. You have a shovel.
I'm thinking, well, you're not going to miss this one, right? Well, no, they will. So it was against the law to take that out of there. That was the only one I remember that I couldn't complete that journey with that plant with. But I've always, people have given me weird things. I've trekked all kinds of things around with me. I've got 2 citrus right now that, I've got people telling me they'll never grow where you are. You've seen them, so they're growing still, and they come from the southeast part of Texas. But I've got things from the East Coast to the Midwest, mainly because of the climates that we're in. But many things, it's neat learning about the different growing climates. and being able to indulge in certain things. Like you can't grow much with bulbs down in the South because it's too hot.
Mm.
So being able to experiment with all the bulbs and all the different types of like Holland type bulbs, the tulips, the daffodils, all those beautiful things. You can up in the Midwest, up where we are now, and you can up in Vermont. Beautiful up there. All different kinds of beautiful bulbs up there. Yeah, it's just been really neat learning about the different growing climates and the different things that I've seen from the different places.
Yeah.
It's been really neat.
What has been some of the challenges you've faced learning this as a... Feels like there should be another word other than like hobby, because it's almost like a lifestyle in how many plants you have, right?
Actually, other people would call it a sickness, but it's a lifestyle, and it's something that I have enjoyed.
Yeah, so, yeah. But what has been sort of a challenge with all these plants?
The challenge can be moving the plants from place to place. When I've moved, it's because of work. And so I've had moving companies that will come in and they'll pick up and they'll move anything that isn't live or alive. And what they mean is plants and animals. They'll move anything but plants and animals. Mm. So I've been responsible for moving those plants myself. Hardest things, I think, have been the time of year I've moved, being very careful to get things when I moved from the South up to the Midwest. I moved in February. Well, that was pretty much freezing temps coming up into the Midwest when we were coming here. Mm-hmm. And I knew that. And so having to get everything prepped, because I had to pull the trailer myself. Mm. And I had to get all them plants nestled in there and everybody snugged up in there nice and warm, because we were going from Texas, Arkansas, coming up through Missouri, going north. And so temperatures were cold, trying to get them from point A to point B safely and alive. I've lost very few along the way, very, very few. And when I lose one, it's hard because I put so much effort and energy into that plant. I had a Norfolk pine that I dragged with me. I had that thing 15 years and I dragged it with me everywhere. But for some reason, when I brought it from Texas up to the Midwest, to Missouri. And then from Missouri, I took it all the way to Vermont and down to Virginia. And when I came back to Illinois, it didn't make it that first year. It died. And it kind of broke my heart, because that thing I went through hell with that plant, but somebody bought it for me. It was a gift. I couldn't at the time, back in the day, no, that thing had to be 20 years old, because back in the day, I couldn't afford a Christmas tree at that time. And so some friends bought me this Norfolk pine in a bucket and dressed it up with little ornaments on it, and brought it to the house. And I was going to plant it in the yard there in Texas when we moved. I just took that tree with me. That tree had a lot of memories behind that tree. A lot of what we went through with the times around that tree, the time that I had the tree. So coming here, it lasted for about 6 months. And then it just didn't make it. It just didn't make it the following winter, because I moved here in April. And then that following winter, it didn't. Either I forgot it, and I hope it wasn't me that forgot it, because it would just break my heart if I'm the one that forgot it and killed it. I committed planticide. And I would get really upset or really hurt if the plant would die, because like I said, it took so much of me, took so much out of me, and I put so much into it. And that thing was huge.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've definitely not lost anything of that size or quality, but we finally got an avocado going.
I saw that.
It's dead. But that was after like a year and a half. That thing takes like 6 months just to know if you sprouted it correctly. And if you didn't, you won't know for like six months or something like that. Some like absurd amount of time. Maybe it's like 3 to 6 months, somewhere in there, it'll start sprouting. And it's just like, if you did it wrong, or if the seed won't, if it's a bad seed or whatever, you won't know for so long. You won't know. And we've got one going, and it was a tree and it had leaves, but
I saw that.
We didn't really have another spot for it other than next to the oven. And that's like not a great spot for a plant, like right next to the oven, because that's where the majority of like the spatter was going in, where are like right next to the oven. So I think that's a big reason it died. Maybe some overwatering as well, but that was a loss, because that was like a year and a half of like, oh my God, we got this thing going. One day we'll have avocados, but we weren't to that point of one day we'll have avocados. Not even close.
Yeah, I'm wondering. Mine's 3 years old now, 4 years old now. I started it. All my life, I've never gotten an avocado seed to root. Never. I literally ignored this thing sitting on a windowsill in Virginia, and then it sprouted. And I left it alone. I didn't pay any attention to it. Never even moved it out of that window. Mm-hmm. Just left it there, and it did just fine. I've got it here. It's doing just great, but you're right. I don't think I'll ever get an avocado off of it. It needs warmer climate. It just does.
Yeah, I'd like to think that one day, but who knows, I
don't know if it keeps up the way it is. We may have warmer climate everywhere, so
that's
probably,
it's very true.
I mean, sad to say, but I might get that. Might get that with this avocado yet here in Illinois. Who knows?
So you said you had a challenge with growing avocados. Have you ever had? Is there anything else that you just like, even with your green thumb, just can't get to grow? Is there anything that you've tried and you're just like, this plant specifically isn't for me? Or was that avocado? Because I thought that there was one. Roses.
Huh. Well, it's really weird, because the only place... Okay, so your great-grandfather,
mm-hmm.
Grandpa Marvin, he was an amazing gardener. You got a lot of gardeners in your life. I mean, my mom was a gardener. Dad was huge into herbs and growing all kinds of stuff. Both your Grammy, both your Papa Jim, huge gardeners. Your grandfather, your Papa Jim, used to grow some of the most amazing Hawaiian lei plants. Crazy in his greenhouse that was completely overrun with Hawaiian lei.
Yeah, I do remember that.
That the whole side of it looked like it was all deteriorating. It just looked like it was nothing but a big jungle of mess. Mm-hmm. No, those were all plumeria in there. He had some really wicked plants. And then your Grammy, huge plant nut. My mom, big time plant nut. So you got a lot of it, but your great grandfather grew some of the best roses in the part of Texas that he lived in, Southeast Houston. Grew some of the most beautiful, the best tomato gardens. He was a heck of a gardener himself, and gave me a lot of tips, told me lots of things to do, and it worked really well. But then we had an armadillo that dug up 19 of the rose bushes that I planted and destroyed them all. And I've never been able to grow a rose bush, like a really healthy rose bush. I've seen them. I've envied people that can. My mom could. I just, for some reason, the rose has always been one that I just can't. I don't know why. I've got 2 in the yard. I'm trying like crazy to keep them alive. Thought I killed the third one, but it popped up out of the ground again. But it's going to snow soon, so it'll kill it back again.
It'll die again.
So it'll probably, I don't know if I'm kind of, maybe I'll get something to put over it and see if I can keep it alive. But
I mean, up here, we've had rose bushes out in front of our apartment since we moved in. We haven't touched them. So like we don't trim them, we don't water them, we don't do anything, and in every spring it comes back on its own, like full bloom. So I don't know if that is the same kind of roses, or if your roses would be able to
climbing. It's still a rose. A rose is a rose is a rose. Now, your great grandfather Marvin at the family property in Tenaha, Texas, is a tea rose bush that is over. Grammy might say it's different, but I think it's around 200 years old now. And everyone has taken a clipping that we knew of from that rose bush and has gotten it to bloom wherever. Gotten it to take, gotten it to grow and to bloom. Yours looks like a climbing or what's called a tea rose as well, because it's a tiny little rose. It's a little tiny rose. Yeah. Like the teacup roses. Right. There's many different types of roses, but I thought that cooler weather did better for roses for some reason. The rose bushes I had at that property up in Vermont seemed to do well, but they were already planted and established when I moved there. Okay. So I didn't. I just let them go, and they did fine. I think once they get to a point, you could kind of let them go, and they do fine. But it's getting them there. I just never had really good luck at something like that. I do well with bulbs and other kinds of flowering things, but the rose has always been one that it's just never been a big interest. When I lost, especially all those that I planted at the house there in Texas, your dad's old house, that we planted them there. And when I lost all those, I kind of lost my desire to try to figure that mess out again. And the other ones that I've had were already established at houses that I had moved into. So kind of got the fruit of somebody else's labor, somebody else's blood, sweat, and tears with that stuff.
Why don't you talk to us a little bit about just like why this subject brings you so much joy? Why getting your hands dirty? Why planting and landscaping? What about this brings that joy out in you?
I think it's maybe it might have something to do with I have a bit of control over that. So where the rest of life just gets out of control, and sometimes you feel like you just can't grasp a hold of something sometimes, doing something where you're familiar and something that that if you do this, it's going to do this. What the fruits of that labor are going to be if you do the right things. If you do what you're supposed to do, you pay attention and you take care and go slow. It is something that slows me down and enables me to just be in the moment, where I've always been very hyper, suffered a lot from ADHD myself, and ADD. And so finding something that can slow down the moment, that I know that if I take this soil and move it to here, now I've got a hole I can stick something in. And if I plant it in that hole properly and I do what I'm supposed to do, then something will grow there, generally. It's just a matter of I've got control over an environment to some degree, where most of the time I don't. Yeah. So being able to just stop in that moment, it gives me quiet moments that I need and gives me moments of chill. And not to mention when I get done, I can see the effort that I put in. I can see what I've done. And that gives me, it doesn't even matter if there's nothing planted there. Once you clear a space and get it ready, I mean, you know that, right? With that garden you did in your backyard. Oh, yeah. Just clearing it and getting it ready. And then you sit back and you go, wow. And then your brain starts going crazy with what am I going to do? Now I'm going to plant this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go here. I'm going to have this. And then you just start creating. You just create this space that is going to yield nothing but positive. It's going to yield nothing but positive.
Yeah, when I when I moved into this place, year one, we've been here. This is our third year now. There was this big patch of rocks in the back, in our backyard, which we were already like pleased to have a backyard, but it was just a big patch of rocks. And I asked if I could throw out those rocks and replace this with some like dirt and mulch and like get it rolling. And I was given the approval, and that was amazing. Like, yes, just like, pick up. I was like, hey, whatever I plant, I'll make sure that when I go to leave, if it's like vegetables and things like that and they're not wanted, I'll make sure to take care of them. It won't be like, I'm not just going to leave you a bunch of death and detritus back here. And they said yes, and I said awesome. So I mean, the first year I simply just removed the rock and replaced it with mulch, and it was a little late in the season, so I didn't want to do any planting. But that alone took me a long time. But just doing it and then looking back there and not seeing this like weird shitty rock patch, but seeing mulch and knowing that every time I go back there I can know like, okay, what is going to happen. And I was allowed then a year to think about what goes where in this. And while that second year, that run of planting didn't take up nearly as much as I did, I learned so much. And that means that the next time I were to do that, which this year we did it differently. We did like aesthetics this year. So like flowers, perennials, things like that. But I learned more about that too. So now I do it again on either side, either vegetables, fruits, and things like that. I've learned a little bit, and I know how to better organize and how to clean up this area better. And it even goes into like when you're growing it too. Like once you have it going, it begins to like over time begins to like look kind of bushy, and then you trim and you weed, and it's just like so clean, and you have the dark soil on this blue or this like bright green plant. And it's like just very aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. Does something for your soul. I think it really does. It just does when you can mess with something and then see how it's all coming together. And there's nothing like that, because that's all growth. It's all life. It's all coming together, and it means something. So you can eat it, you can enjoy it, you can marvel in it, pick it and put it on the counter in a little jar. I mean, you can just bring it inside, keep it outside. There's so much to it, to me, and it's so simple. And it is something that to me is just, that's where I think my most joy is there. Anything to do with plants. Sorry, I've got the new cat behind me now who's found a little play mouse, and he's loving it.
We had probably like 5 episodes ago-ish, we had Casey on, and he was talking a lot about growing his own food, and his was pretty centered around that. And at some point I had asked him about his houseplants, and he was like, oh, these are Amy's. I think if you're going to grow houseplants, they should be like, food or production things. And I was like, oh, I get this. I mean, I do understand this thought, right? Like if I were to replace all of the plants in my house with growable things, then holy cow, I would have tons of food. However, you are kind of like on the other side of this. You have, talk to us a little bit about your houseplants. You got just floor to ceiling. So
I haven't counted how many I got now, but last year at the height of the season, the height of winter, when everything was brought in and everything was good, there were 57 houseplants. 57 of them babies in the house. So every room, besides the basement and the bathroom off the kitchen, every room in this house has got a plant in it. Plants in it. Plants. But it takes me a while to move things about, to find the right light, to find the right condition for something. Yeah. What gets me is that by the time when I finally get everybody situated, then it seems like it's either time to move them back outside or I know I'm moving. And people go, well, then don't anchor things then. Well, but the plant is alive, and so it needs water, it needs sun, it needs light, it it needs. So I got to make sure that everybody is doing what they need to do and is where they are. And when I actually killed something a while back. Didn't even realize I did it. I had a little tiny jar sitting on the windowsill of something behind a big bushy plant. And I didn't pay attention to it, didn't water it all winter long. So when I moved everything out for the spring, and I found this pot of dried up soil, and the plant had died so much that there was barely any remnants of a plant there.
I've had a few of those. Where you just get the little nub of wood coming out of the...
Maybe, yeah. There's like a little thing, little nubbin sticking out. But I knew what it was. And it was one that I had put off because it needed special care. And I was going to stick it behind something. It had the best sunlight in that window. And yeah, it killed it. And that was it was actually a plant that somebody said, oh, you can't kill it. And I said, don't say that, because the minute you say that, I'm going to kill it. So don't say, oh, no, you can't kill these things. It's called the mother of thousands. And I've got a couple of them sitting around the house. And this one looked like it was kind of sick. And I remember the lady at the farmer's market said, oh, you can't kill it. She even gave it to me for free when I bought your mother of thousand.
Yeah.
And she said, I'll just give it to you free. She said, you can't kill it. Just water him occasionally and blah, blah, stuck him in the window. And I forgot about it. Well, you can kill it if you forget about it. And I forgot about it because it'd been 4 months. He hadn't had any water.
Right.
There wasn't even any moisture in that room. But now I've got everybody set up, and I've got a good setup going on, and being able to get the right plants in the right areas. I can't lift what I used to before, so the grapefruit tree is only going to be maybe another year or two. I could bring him in the house, but other than that, he's going to have to stay outside because he'll just be too big. And I think at that time I'll lose him because he's just not this climate, right? Unless I can find a house with a tall atrium that I can grow him inside, and I'll keep him inside. But yeah, I've got things pretty much set up. Got a nice setup this year with everything. Tried to give away plants because I knew I had a lot, didn't have enough room to bring everybody in. So I've been trying to give things away. My neighbors, my wonderful neighbors next door to me, just bought a house, and so they're moving. And she likes plants. So I told her I've got a lot I'm going to give her as a housewarming gift. So I've got all kinds of things I'm getting set up for her. And that brings me joy when I'm able to give a plant that I knew I started, I knew I grew, that I gave to somebody. And so she's got quite a few of my wares next door. Be giving away more of those. Yeah. There's just a lot in this house that I've got to keep up with, but I've got it to and one thing I remember, do you remember when you and Kenna and I went to that little funky little store? I can't remember what it's called, but they had it was like, I remember the months were cooler. It's an indoor plant shop.
Oh,
and they had a bunch of funky succulents and really weird things in there. And can't remember what they called it, but this guy.
Something like splitting rock or something rocks.
I think it's something rock, splitting rock or something. But
yeah,
there's only the two bottom pieces. And Kenneth said, ignore it. Don't pay attention to it. Leave it alone. Put it in a sunny window. Since I've done that, I've gotten 2 more layers that have come up. And I only had him, and I never water him, and that's something that's so hard for me because I'm watering.
Yeah.
Once a week in here. I got to keep things moist because the house dries, especially with the radiators, it dries the house out. I'm looking for some humidifiers that I can put in a room and, run them occasionally when I need to because the house does get quite dried out. But yeah, I've got things down. I lost a few plants this year, but some that I've got are, started thinking about it the other day. I'm still at a point where I know where every plant came from. I still remember where everything, and probably the oldest thing I've got is maybe now around 10 to 15 years old. It may be one of my chevaliers down in the downstairs, the chevalier plant. Mm-hmm. It's just that I've moved from climate to climate, and very, very drastically different climates that some of them just didn't survive.
Right.
But some do. So I just keep going with it best I can.
What do you think has been your favorite thing to learn in your journey with growing plants of so many kinds?
When somebody told me you'll never be able to grow that there, and I have. That is whenever people say and I know, and they're right, because the plant, they're not indigenous to that area. That's just not where they're, like the citrus. The 2 citrus that I have are from your grandmother. Your Grammy, she grew these from seed herself. And so one of them I started from a seed, my Meyer lemon tree. He's now 4 years old, 3 years old. The grapefruit that I have, the golden grapefruit that I've got, these grapefruits are just amazing. And they only grow, there's a guy down in Southwest Texas that grafted these things and started them himself. And so she grew, as you knew, out on her property.
Yeah.
She had like 4 or 5 of these trees, and then she started grafting them and starting pops. This grapefruit, I started from probably a plant that was maybe 10 inches tall. And he is now that guy.
Oh, like almost to the ceiling.
Yeah. He's probably about 6 feet tall now. Mm-hmm. But that's been my greatest accomplishment with that. I know they don't grow up here because this is not the area. This is not the climate. This is not the weather. This is not the area for them. But to have him in the condition that he's in.
Really sort of just to to recognize the like recommendations and the limits of what this can do, and to realize that like if you work at it hard enough, you can possibly overcome those limits. And you have.
And he's the one that I think I'm going to have the biggest, I won't say learning curve, but he's the biggest adventure for me. Maybe I can say it like that. Mm-hmm. It's a journey that I've been on with this thing, because I as I understand it, they usually fruit within the first 5 years. It takes about 5 years, 4 to 5 years for them to fruit. In
their normal climate.
Yeah. Well, he turns 5 this year. So maybe I got to find a bigger pot for him. And I'm kind of afraid to repot him, because once I repot him, I won't be able to lift him anymore.
Right.
I won't be able to carry him in. So I gotta find, he's got to be potted. He's got to be repotted. But I'm just hoping that he survives this winter. I've got a big whiskey barrel I'm going to pot him in. I just got to be able to get you guys out here to help pull him into the house.
I'm curious if you could figure out a design that's like aesthetically pleasing and fitting to the home, that puts it on a dolly or on a maybe just like a small platform with 4 wheels, even, so you can slide it.
I bought one of those.
Okay.
So dolly, because I was thinking the same thing. Once I get it potted, he's going to have to be on wheels just so I can move him around.
Some locks for those wheels.
And so what I found was a little wooden dolly I got to put together myself. And then that's his base. That'll be his base. And I can put him on there. And then I found at an estate sale, somebody was trying to get rid of a bunch of plants. And I said, I just want the whiskey barrel. I don't want the dead plants that are in it or the soil. I just want the whiskey barrel. And the lady said, sold. And she dumped the whole thing out. And I was like, damn. And I got it for like $10. These things were like $60, $60 or $70.
Yeah.
Right? And so I got it. So that's going to be his spot. And then I went to the home, like a home improvement store, and I told him what I was trying to do. And I said, I need to put him on something that I can move him once I get him planted. I won't be able to pick up the pot myself, but at least if I can like wheel him into the garage during the winter, I can maybe set up a greenhouse in the garage. Maybe I could do that. And that's when they said, let's look at a dolly. Now you could assemble it yourself, take a couple of screws. I can do that. And then that way I'll have him on a wheeled base that I can move him around.
Yeah.
So yeah. Do that.
Do you have any advice sort of on this kind of train of lessons? Do you have any advice for people who are interested in trying out to plant, but they just really don't think that they have like a green thumb, or they're scared to kill some stuff? Do you have any advice for people like starting to get into a hobby or lifestyle like this?
Practice makes perfect. Just try. I was always afraid, a little bit afraid to buy new things or try out some new things, but go slow with yourself. Buy things that interest you. Check out the information behind the plant itself. If you've got good lighting or an ability to give it good lighting, because you got water, so you're good there. It's mainly the climate that you're bringing it into. If something is typically an outdoor only, you typically wouldn't be able to necessarily bring it in. Well, like I've got the citrus, well, they are, but they're small enough for me to maneuver them. But I think just try. If something intrigues you, try it. You never know. There's things that I can't do cactus. I would love to do cactus. I can't do cactus. I've never had good luck at cactus.
I overwater. Even trying to underwater a cactus, I will overwater it and it will die being waterlogged.
And so that's typically my problem. So I think anything that you try, just be patient. I like to start off with things that propagate easy and quickly, because you just about can't kill them. So if you start off small with things that are more common.
Things like, do you have good examples of that?
Spider plants, or what they call airplane plants. Once you find a good spot for them, boom, those things take off, and you barely have to do anything with them.
Yep. Pothos ivy is a really good one.
Pothos ivies can be good. I got a friend in Vermont. She's got a 35-year-old hanging basket. But this thing, and it's a pothos ivy that is in with something else, like is it an angel wing ivy? This thing is massive, and it literally takes up a spot that's got to be like a 5 foot by 5 foot corner. It hangs in, and it is just, it's the arm span of this thing is crazy. And she said whenever they've moved around quite a bit, and wherever they go, it was something that they bought. She said, I've had to do very little with it, just hang it in front of a window. They got good light and thing took off. But just try things. Some people are really good at certain things, like the basic orchids you can get at the store. I can't remember what they're called, but they're the more common orchids that are really cheap. You can buy them, get them at the grocery store. You can find them at the Home Depots. You can find them all kinds of places. I've gotten into those. Those are actually really easy to grow. I used to be intimidated and afraid of them because I thought orchids just required so much more care. Yeah,
you hear about an orchid show and you're like, orchids must be tough to grow, all orchids. But it's not, there's tons of different varieties of orchids.
Yes, there are. And the ones that you see in the stores are actually the more easier ones to grow. As long as you got good light and a good a window with some really good light, not sunlight, but good bright light, and just keep them there. Like the ivies, most of the succulents, aloe vera, holy crap, aloe vera will go crazy.
It's true.
Just about can't kill. I know, because I've got a room full of it in here. I'd love to give some of it away. It is busting out of the pot. The pots are all broken. It's grown so much that I've got to repot, and I've got 3. I could turn this into a nursery and sell these things if I wanted, but they grow like crazy. Anything that can be typically relatively easy. The peace lilies, those are Those are ones that are very pretty. They have the wicked flower that grows up like in a cone shape, and then it's got the little stamen that comes up in it. But then it's got the beautiful green leaves on those things. If you can find, I had one that I had for, God, probably 20 years. And then I stuck it in an area. I think I left it out. It was one I killed over at the townhome. I left it out in the sunroom and I forgot it. And it froze that night and it didn't make it. It did not come back.
We had
tried.
2 peace lilies at one point. One has died, I think, and the other did not flower this year, I think.
Sometimes they don't.
Yeah. And I think that's another good point to think about, is that this as a hobby just requires good amounts of patience. It's not by any means a fast hobby. Even when we're talking about like something like a pothos ivy that grows quickly. When we say grows quickly, it's not like, you're not going to be able to measure that growth every day in a meaningful way, but having some patience and being willing to like come back and look at it again later and see if there's something that whatever you've tried has done, if it's working. Maybe it's, maybe the plant is now more bountiful. Maybe it is, maybe you noticed some brown leaves and you're trying to fix that. Maybe you noticed some, be willing to learn and be patient with your plant as it grows. Because anything you do on a plant takes forever for you to realize what it has done truly to the plant.
True. And it teaches you a lot about patience. It can, because you cannot go fast with something like that. You can't. And just wind yourself down with it. So I used to like to get up 2 hours before everybody else, just so I could go around and pick dead things off of the plants, pick the brown spots off the leaves, or trim things up. Just to spend that time. It's quiet, it's mindless work, but when you get done, what you've got is beautifully trimmed. Everything looks healthy. It shows your efforts. It just does. Mm-hmm. And your patience with most of it. So,
yeah.
But definitely so. And I've learned things from you and Kenna both in my plant journey that I didn't do before, that have made great strides in keeping things very healthy and keeping things growing and keeping things propagating like crazy, learning all that. So yeah, I pick up things from everybody. I listen to everybody as best as I can. And like I said, the things that I have are from all over. I believe you can, for the most part, grow almost anything anywhere. But I think a lot of it just takes it with patience, being gentle, and slowing yourself down a bit. Because sometimes our lives just get so crazy. It's the one thing that makes me slow down.
Yeah.
Because I know I can't go fast with it. Mm-hmm. I won't get the same results if I do. Mm-hmm. I can't do that. So yeah.
Yeah. I think that is a fantastic point. I think a lot of finding joy in our lives is where we find the moment to escape the hubbub of your normal life. And when you can find a moment to take that breath and be at peace in whatever way for however long, just a moment, a little breath of peace even is enough to refresh you, to just get up from your desk because you work from home, to go around the house once or twice and pick off some dead leaves, or get out some detritus, or rearrange a vine or two. Gives you just that moment of, either indirectly thinking about what you're doing or not thinking about what you were doing before, and just thinking about this in the moment. And it helps you get that moment for refreshing. Very
absolutely
hard to find, I think, in everyday life if you don't take the time to sort of find it.
And since I've been working remote, I think my plants look better than they ever have.
You got so much more time to spend on them.
I've got so much more. I really do, because I don't take breaks like most people do, where they'll take a 10-minute break in the morning and a 10-minute break in the afternoon or something. I don't do that. The work I do is crazy. And so there's times I've got to pull away from it. I've got to step back from it. And I can't think. I'm too involved in it. I can't think, and I can't come up with my solution. So I go water something, or I'll go into the room that I haven't been in maybe in a couple of days, and I'll go in there and, like you said, pick dead things off, pick dead leaves and dead branches off of stuff and get them out of the way and clean soil up and whatever. Maybe spray for mites. Thank God I don't have any mites yet. Open up. Oh my God. If I got a mite breakout, yeah, it's hell. So I got to watch it like crazy. Because I'm really kind of nervous. I'm going to try to bring in this artichoke that I've been trying to grow. And I've had this thing now 2 years. And they're supposed to die back and kind of freeze back. And you're supposed to put mulch over the top of them. But I don't want to lose this guy. So I've been dragging him in and out of the house. But last year when I brought him in, he infested
my
spare bedroom with mites. Or not little mites, but the little tiny black gnat thingies. Mm-hmm. It was everywhere. And I ended up getting every other plant out of that room except for the aloe vera. Those little black gnats don't like the aloe vera. Okay, then. That's the only thing they weren't eating. But they were, that artichoke was covered in them.
Yeah.
But when I put it out in spring, they all died. They all went away, and the plant grew like crazy. I'm a little nervous. I've got some things set up this year. I'm thinking I might have a better run at it this year. Getting stuff prepped and ready. Got my insecticidal stuff ready to go. Got my sprayers. Even bought a good sun lamp. Got a pretty decent setup, I think, this year.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how this winter holds out for me here.
You get to see if some of your prep work kind of pays off. Yeah. So is there anything about this topic in, getting your hands dirty, in growing plants, in landscaping that brings you joy that we haven't had time to touch on today or haven't touched on yet?
No, I think we touched everything pretty much. I think we did.
Just love having a time to find this peace throughout your day. If there is a traditional smoke break, whereas you don't do that, you take a plant break. You get up and you enjoy you enjoy your plants. I think that it sounds to me, to maybe break it down a little bit, that this joy goes kind of spreads out in many ways, right? It's not necessarily just plants, but it's one, you find peace in it. So peace is a big thing. Caregiving, you have a moment to like give, take care of all of these things. A little bit of success, right? Like you get this successful feeling from being able to grow things maybe that were a challenge, or tackle a problem like with this gnat thing that you haven't, or from last year, being able to tackle those problems and seeing like, I did it just right this time, or I did it better than last time because there are gnats or whatnot. And then, a sense of community. Like you said, you like to give them as gifts, and it's not just about giving a plant, but it's about giving like, this is a part of my home into your home, right? Helping create that sense of community. I think that's a very
spread the love,
full, like all-encompassing joy. Yeah, a great approach to it. I think this is the first time where we've had a joy on that is, we touched on a little early on in the episode, somewhat similar to another joy, but this has been the one that I was like a situation like this is something that I was kind of looking forward to like test that, like how is the approach to this somewhat similar subject different based on a different person. And it's great because like it's so different, right? Like the things that you focus on in this are different than the thing that guest focused on, that Casey focused on when it comes to like growing plants and to this whole sort of lifestyle of maintaining them and giving care to them. Is just, it's very intriguing. And I think that kind of goes, that should kind of spread out to everyone really listening, is that even if you listen to something and you say like, well, I don't think that I would find that same joy, that's not to say that you couldn't still find joy here or in a subject.
That's right.
You just might find it differently, and that is okay as well. We all find our joys differently, and that's a huge reason that I continue to do this, is that we get a moment to spread that and get a different thought on how that can present in our lives.
It's good that we need to be reminded that we need to be able to find joy. And sometimes if we stop and slow ourselves down enough it's there.
Yeah.
There's something. And it can be anything. It can be. It's just got to be something. You got to find something. We just need more joy. We need more joy.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I think that we're going to be drawing to a close here, but it was absolutely lovely having you on. I've been really looking forward to this episode just to see what you decided to bring and what your approach was to it. I really enjoyed talking to you about this.
Oh, I have really enjoyed this myself too. And this is what's brought me joy too. So thank you very much. Being able to spend this little bit of time with you and in your space, and what brings you inspiration and joy, being able to share in that. So thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really do.
Yeah, it's a joyful.
This myself.
Amazing. So I'm glad that we got to share these joys today.
Me too.
We're gonna close up here, and I will reach out to you soon. We'll talk soon.
Okay, honey. I love you.
Love you too.
And we will chat again with you soon.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. As for you folks, I want to thank everyone for coming on out to join today on the 12th episode of the PureJoy Podcast. We talked a lot about what we like to do here, right, folks? We talked a lot about spreading joy and about finding the intricacies of our joy. What is that to us? Why does getting her hands dirty bring my mom so much joy? I think one thing I'm feeling very pleased with is this through line of finding peace, right? Everyone seems to find a peace in their joy. I don't know necessarily that I have so much to break that down on. It's just an intriguing thought. I've said since early on that we're trying to look here. If in the end of this podcast, I was able to tell someone, that didn't know what joy was, I would be pleased. That would be, maybe they would be able to find it in their own lives. And it's intriguing that many people that have these pure joys, that they've thought about them and they've lived with them for long periods of time, feel this sense of peace when they do it. They enjoy the practice of this joy. They enjoy getting better and learning, and just this sense of peace that they find when they get to do it. So yeah, just a note that stuck out to me. Let's give some thanks, y'all. I want to appreciate first all of you for coming out and listening to the podcast. You're the reason I'm doing this, right? To spread all of this joy. It's absolutely lovely having anyone here that is listening in and enjoying being a part of this. I want to thank my mom for coming out and making time to be a part of our podcast and is sharing her joy sort of openly with us and expressing, and diving on into why and what about that brings her joy. I want to thank MioWnize and Murda for allowing me to use their music in the intro and the outro, as well as the transitions. I really, really appreciate them. And I just again want to thank all of you for coming on out and joining me in this adventure. As far as dates go, folks, our next live recording episode, folks, will be on November 6th. I am actually still in the process of shoring up that guest for the first time on an episode, so we'll see. But I have some stuff in the works. We might have a few close friends on. There's a few different people that I have talking to, so we'll see who our next guest is on November 6th. And our next episode will be out on the podcatchers and on YouTube, wherever you can find them, on November 13th. So that's just sort of the train of dates there. Again, I appreciate all of you coming on out and joining us on the 12th episode of the PureJoy Podcast. You're the reason I do this, and I am excited to keep doing it. Thank you so much for joining, folks, and we'll see you next time.